I'm the reverend, one of the pastors at the church, at the little church in Portland. It's called Church of the Promise. It grew out of the Promise, or the Promise Center. So Portland is the starting point of Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know if you all knew that, but it is directly adjacent to the Falls of the Ohio. And so before the locks and dams were there, the boats would come up and down the river, and they would have to literally take the boats out and move them. And that was the bottleneck that created our city. Portland was the place to be. If you didn't know, long ago, back in the day, if you were an up-and-coming professional, if you were trying to raise a family in a nice neighborhood, Portland was where you wanted to be. What happened? Right? Spoiler alert, like most kind of injustice or problems in our society, it's race-related, right? So what happened was you hear the story in Louisville area a lot, and we talk about the busing, right? The integration, folks being forced to intermingle, and what we found came out of that in our city, but also cities like all across the country, was the creation of the suburbs, right? So folks made suburbs, and then they made laws about who could own houses in the suburbs and who couldn't. And they kept, they moved away. We talk about Portland and what affected that a lot. What happens when there's a mass exodus of people with the means to leave, you end up with a leadership vacuum. You end up with, when all people with the resources and the means for production, the business owners, the people with cash, the people with the ability to get loans, leave a neighborhood, you've created this vacuum of people with resources to do these things. So we fast forward to today, or some time has passed. When you leave, the whole neighborhood is kind of in this vacuum of resources. Let me say this: the more insidious thing that happens, right? So that's what happens. All the resources are gone, and there's a bunch of poor people. The more insidious thing that I think, or maybe possibly the more evil thing that kind of happens along with that, is then you begin to change the narrative of your neighborhood, right? So now, Portland is no longer just this, it's not this booming place where business owners and families go to live. It's this place to be escaped. We tell the narrative that it's not safe to be there, or that X, Y, Z, fill in the book, right? Eventually, folks who live there start to live. There's a bunch of belonging, and people start to live. Out of all the homes that are occupied in Portland, 70% of them are renters, and 30% are homeowners. If you do a research or a quick search on what they suggest for a healthy neighborhood, it's the exact flip of that. What you're really looking for as a developer, as a healthy neighborhood, is 30% renters, 70% homeownership. So the majority of the renters in the neighborhood do not live there. So you have a resource extraction, right? So if the renters offer a rental space, and the renter pays rent, and then they take that money and they buy those coffees on the other side of town, right? They start businesses on the other side of town. There's a resource extraction. So there's a mass exodus of the leaders and leadership and resource people, and then there's an extraction from the resources that remain. With all of that that's happening, I think it's precisely where the church can speak to and challenge our world towards something different. I think that as neighborhoods like mine are changing, the church can and should be the one that encourages, invites, challenges, offers. Challenge is the word I'm using. For investors and people, for that to happen in a way that the people of the neighborhood get a seat at the table, that the people at the neighborhood get ownership of the houses, that people at the neighborhood get a say in what businesses get open, and they get a job at those businesses, right? So that this is really what drives me and a lot of the work that I do. Here's where things get interesting. The church, there was a group of folks in the church who said, "What's next? What's our next missional call? What are we doing?" And there was a group of folks who said, "Well, we have a heart for this food insecurity problem. And we want to listen to our neighbors and figure out what is the response. So what are we hearing from our neighbors? What would be helpful?" And the neighbors said, "We don't have any sit-down restaurants. We have McDonald's and Dairy Queen, but Dairy Queen is closed. And that's it. So let's open a sit-down restaurant." Well, we're a church, so we can't just open a sit-down restaurant. It's not just a money-making endeavor, right? It's a missional call. So what they did was they created, which probably many of you know and have heard of, is the Table Cafe. So our little Methodist church has a cafe, and it's a pay what you can restaurant. So if you come in, you are valued, you have a seat at the table, you have value to give. If you can't pay, if you don't have money, we will exchange work for that. So you get a little 5-minute training, you get a t-shirt, you're part of the team, and we'll put you to work. You can wash the dishes, you can help serve, you can scrub baseboards. We will find a way for you to be a part of the team. Here's what happened next. When I was in the seminary, I bought a house that was 1 block from my parents for $6,000 on the courthouse steps. I paid $7,000 too much. It had holes in every single wall. It was moving the walls. You still to this day you can't play marbles on the floor, because like this. But there was trash piled up this high in every room. Everything was rotten. It was disgusting. It was on the demo list, right? So I bought it for $6,000. While I was going to seminary, because I didn't have anything else to do, I started watching a bunch of YouTube videos and learning how to be a contractor. And I rebuilt with my hands and my friends and my dad and my now wife. We rebuilt my house. And at the end of it, I had some creative financing going on. I didn't sell the drugs, but I won't take it out financing. But at the end of this, I was going to have a house free and clear of being mortgaged. And I'm an educated individual. I knew that how my grandparents had that. And I saw how influential and impactful that is. I learned the value of a non-liquid asset and how to leverage that, and the economic empowerment, economic development that would provide for me and my family. So the whole time I'm in seminary, I build this house, and I think, how can I do this for my neighbors who are experiencing gentrification, who are experiencing taxes going up faster than we can count, that are experiencing a group of outsiders coming in and buying up whole blocks. How can I work for a way that they get to retain some ownership in the neighborhood? Ironically, or Holy Spirit led, at the same time that I was doing that, there was this weird thing happening with our church community. If someone who had a considerable amount of money and they wanted to give a nice check to the church, instead of just writing a $30,000 check to the church, they started buying houses. And then they asked the church, all right, who do you know and love and trust that maybe doesn't fit into the 30-year banking mortgage system, but would be a good candidate for a homeowner? Who's in your relational sphere? Who's the church in Lebanon that could do well with a home, with being a homeowner? And so this person who wanted to give this, a person who might want to give a large amount of money to the church, bought a house, wrote a personal mortgage on it, and they gave the mortgage to our church. So the church is holding the mortgage, the neighbor is paying their mortgage directly to the church, so it's still a gift of $30,000 to the church over the course of 5 years. The neighbor gets to be a homeowner, gets to build equity faster than anybody else on the market. There's a no interest, so they're able to build wealth for themselves and really change that generational wealth gap. And the neighborhood gets a homeowner, and it benefits the longevity of our church community. So we married my kind of love and excitement for building houses with these non-conventional church acting like a bank mortgage system, right? So we created a nonprofit construction company, and we called it Promise Housing Plus. I am the executive director of Promise Housing Plus. One of my mentors of the faith, a guy named John Perkins, said, if you give anybody anything, give them a job. So I have a real desire and heart for economic development, for creating jobs in our neighborhood. When the leadership vacuum happens and the small business owners leave, the jobs go as well. And so to create some economic empowerment for our neighbors, creating a company where jobs are available, was on my heart. So this was part of this Promise Housing Plus development. We made a relationship with the city, and we get houses for $1. Still pay $7,000 too much, right? $1 is still too much, right? So we were getting houses from the city for $1. We have renovated them. We'll take a construction crew, people from the neighborhood who we've hired, who we work with, folks from our recovery communities, and we will completely renovate these houses. And then after they're finished, we do one of those church mortgages on it. The construction company gives the house to the church to hold the mortgage. That's a really bad business model, right? It's awful. They build up all this equity in the house and then just give it away. Like, that doesn't make sense. So how does it work? And we're a nonprofit and we raise money, but I don't know if you guys have been involved in the nonprofit world at all. Raising money is soul crushing, and will take all of your time and you'll spend all your money, all your time raising money for poor people, and then one day you wake up and say, I don't know anymore. So how else can you make this thing sustainable? Because we have a desire to create sustainable jobs, because we have a desire to develop job skills, job training with our neighbors, that's our secondary mission. And here's what we do. If you guys need a deck built at your house, or if you want your kitchen removed, or your bathroom, I will charge you as much profit as I can charge you. And then I will use that profit to fuel our mission process. So we're using the market, and then something like 70% of our gross profit goes to direct connect to fund our mission process. We use the construction market to train up our neighbors in skills. See, in Portland, everybody walking down the street thinks that they're a construction expert. And sometimes they need a little help. A little training. But we use the market, we call it side jobs. And so we will use that market to fuel our missions. For most of my life, I have been raised in the philosophy of ministry that we call Christian community development. It's realizing that the gospel, that this faith, this following Jesus thing has more to say to our lives than just gathering up and singing songs and doing the thing that we do on Sunday. That doesn't mean that that's not important, because we do that. That is important. But that's a gathering up. That's a team huddle, right? But there is a mission call to live and express and that our faith in some way, right? CCDA, Christian Community Development Association, Christian Community Development, it also has some core pillars, some core things that help it work. One of those is relocation. So it's really important for us, for the people who engage in ministry with us and in the neighborhood. It's really important that you live there, right? It's important to be there and to be incarnational. When my neighbors wake up and they walk outside and there's police everywhere and you're not really sure why, when I walk out my house, I get to see it too. It's my problem too, right? If gunshots are a problem, it's my problem too. There's a level of trust that's involved in relocation and being amongst the people we are called to live among. Listening to the community is another pillar. That is the idea of hearing and listening to the folks who are within the community, recognizing that they have the ideas that are important, that they have the solutions to the problems that they and their family have lived with for generations. Bringing up indigenous leaders is a part of Christian community development. So part of that is we're building these avenues for economic development. We're building these avenues for people to come and get a meal, but more than just get a meal, to get part of the community, to be valued, to have a seat, to have say. Finding ways to bring up indigenous leaders, people from within the community, and letting them run the show. So that way, at the end of it, they say, look at what I've done. That is the way. That's the goal, right? Not look at what you've done for our neighborhood. Look at what we've done.